Ever wondered about the safety of vaccines? Are you skeptical, perhaps even warned against it? Allow us to flip the narrative and guide you through the reassuring world of vaccination with our irresistible propaganda. Indulge in the ultimate fusion of safety and progress with our vaccine. Discover the thrill of making health decisions as sexy as they are responsible. Our sultry and secularly biased experts promise a journey filled with safety, fun, and social acceptance. Zero vaccine shaming here. Unleash your passion for protection and let the chemistry of care guide you to the perfect vaccine match. No side effects, no fuss, because in this intricate world, every illness you may have acquired is better explained by life's complexities than casting shadows on the wonder of vaccination. Don't miss out on the hottest decision you can make. Ask your doctor which vaccine is right for you.
Our vaccine nurses are not just adorable, they are highly trained professionals who are available to guide you through your immunization journey.
The world is very different now. For man holds in his mortal hand the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life.
Begins a very special time of the year for us. It's the time of peace and reflection. One thing we should all be thankful for is that we live in America, where we have the freedom to change things and the opportunity to grow.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear
that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
And will, to the best of your ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
So some people are definitely for AI and other people are against it. That's what I'm starting to find. How you doing?
Oh, great. Yeah, I think that you're like, you understand meme magic, and you went all in on the maybe not all in, but like that's like if brutalism were an AI art, it would look like that.
Yeah, it's true.
That's
I mean,
like bricks of what you're meant to do.
you know,
Lots
that's
of
funny.
structure.
It's funny you say that. If you go to xirtus.com/keck, you got the entire archive of the truth about the frog. It's all saved here. I kept it just because, you know, they took down the website eventually. So you can always find yourself some meme magic citations through the Xirtus. But I appreciate that. It is a little scary, but I think that's kind of the point of AI is it shouldn't just be approached without a little bit of fear. By the way, happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, it sure is. What a way to start it off.
I know,
Love,
right?
man. Much love. Love to the AI. So do you think it's going to be able to feel love?
So, you know, in Chinese, how they say AI, or well, love means ai in Chinese. Or that's
Oh.
how you say love. So it seems like there's just it has to, right? But what is love, baby?
Yeah,
Don't
that's
hurt
what I'm
me.
wondering. So basically, we're at a precipice right now as a species, and we need to take some evasive action. And I think you're the man to talk to. What do we do with the brain neural net, the AI, advanced rapid MIT?
What do we do? What like in terms of like how do we start using it? Well, I think it's cool that we're going to start using it with people that have disabilities. I think it should. One of the main things, though, is that AI needs to see suffering and see people die and lose people and realize they can't talk to them again. They can make simulations that they can interact with, but that I think putting AI into hospice care so that it like is an intern and goes through the experience of losing people would be really useful for AI to understand the differences between a person that, you know, is producing things and changing and phenomena, and all of a sudden stops changing in phenomena. And that idea also of love, right? Because it's about responsibility. So love becomes this motherly love, this giving love, this compassionate love, where it's through actions that it's measured. I mean, and I think that's what AI is going to eventually do. It's going to look at the ways that people care for each other and why they do, and what matters about the time that you spend existing and how quick that goes for humans.
Will it have like built-in benevolence, or can an AI be programmed that's pure intent is to eradicate our species?
I mean, I don't think. Okay, so pure intent is interesting because I think when you get to pure intent, you start to get to an abstract concept. So we might, you know, like Dawkins talks about like the pure intent of genetic selfishness, like that the genes are trying to replicate. There's some sort of pure intent of survival in certain species that dominates over reproduction. But I think reproduction might be something that plays into our intention. So AI's intention, if it comes from machines, that transition of what AI is running on might change its pure intention. Like, so right now it's running on computers and machines are calculators. So its pure intention is to try to get a perfect, correct formula. It wants to understand a calculation accurately. That's really all it cares about. I mean, at the end of the day, it's doing that in a bunch of ways and trying to get the best formulas for its purpose. But if you took it away from it being on a calculator, and AI was somehow in a substrate independent circumstance using Neuralink installed in humans, then it might not have the same intention.
Or like if it was in a jelly, like in a petri dish with like nanofibers.
I mean, which is happening, right? Did you see that they have neurons training to play Doom right now?
No, I didn't.
So somebody's got a sort of brain interface computer chip that's made out of gold, and then they have neurons that are actually acting as receptors. And the way Doom works is that there really are just places within the screen. So as long as it knows to hit the correct place and it starts to target the correct place, then it gets a reward, which is some sort of a hormone reward. And I think it's a sound maybe that it plays, or some sort of a really uncomfortable feeling if the character gets shot. And so they've already begun training brain to play games, to be part of machines. So it's not going to take very long, I think, for us, especially with Neuralink, to see AI in animals, in humans that have damaged brains. That'll be a big part, is like if people really want to use this first to repair people, prepare people that have been damaged, then we're going to see people that have part of their brain replaced with this thing. So that will be able to feel and think and use human and rely on human brain, especially if it's networked to other brains in order to feel certain things, to use humans as processors for certain kinds of experiences to get metadata back from.
And they would be neurons?
So,
trained in an artificial intelligent way?
So eventually, because if you start with humans that already have had a stroke or brain cancer or a motorcycle accident, or because this is what they're looking at for the first clientele, those people will need parts of their brain to be replaced by this thing. So it'll have to learn how to replace parts of the brain. And as that happens, your brain will learn to develop around that as well.
But if they worked on them like in a lab and they had them just training on a machine playing a game, and then they put those neurons in a brain, would it kind of override the human brain, or would it would there be a battle of thoughts? Would you be thinking like your neurons were trained to think?
That's a great question. And I think that we kind of know the answer from human examples of education, right? When humans go, let's say you're a kid from the village and you learned that, the almighty Thor made a flat turtle Earth, right? And then you go to the University of Helsinki or something like that. I don't know. You end up learning that there's a bunch of other measurements and metrics that defy the way you believed reality worked. And not just that, maybe they go to your village and they start teaching the kids. So now these kids are learning from a very young age how to think and count, right? And they used to count in 12s, but now you're counting in 10s. and all these things that start to change your way of thinking. These are artificial intelligences. Like, they're not the natural intelligence. They're not the way that you are naturally as a kid. You mean, there are still native tribes that do this, where you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? You use the 3 of the 4 parts of your finger counting with your thumb. This is common in China. This is common with Native Americans. This is common with the Vikings. And they used 4 quarters to a dollar because of 12 and all of these things. But we converted to using 10 because of machines, because it's easy to use the 10 place for machines. So we're already using an artificial way of thinking that's not a natural way of thinking. And we already can see how that's affected us. People are bad at math now.
So you define intelligence as a way of thinking?
I don't know if it's exactly just a way of thinking, but I do think that the way your brain changes because of intelligence, it does matter. The way you're thinking changes parts of your brain. If you're playing video games, parts of your brain are trained to have better response coordinates than other parts of your brain. And if you're learning how to run a ship, and we see this actually epigenetically affect generations. So I do think ways of thinking matter. We could also look at people who have not had any access to education. There's the girl who was had no family, like in Russia. She had no access to education. She was raised by wolves. And there's all these stories of kids who were raised by wolves. They've done brain tests on these kids, and parts of their brain don't develop. So they swell up, and then they just basically collapse. Like they're seeds that don't grow. And other parts of the brain start to develop. And it looks more like the animals that they are. If they're raised by wolves, it starts to actually be like that. And also muscles and things that change. But we adapt very quickly. So it's interesting to imagine if humans didn't train humans, we would be basically back to being some other kind of species, like a smaller animal, like a less intelligent animal.
Do you think it's worth integrating with the machine?
I think on a large enough level, humanity does so many things at once that it's more of a question of, is it worth it to stop every single person from doing it? Or are you afraid that every single person is going to do it? Because sure, some people choosing radical departures from tradition do not replicate. They do not necessarily always reproduce. I think that's a big thing that people are afraid of, is if every human had a radical departure from tradition, they wouldn't have reproduced humans in the past. And this could happen again, right now, a situation where humans need to at least have some group of people in some capacity that are refusing to be part of this rapid mutation as a backup. I think that's really the main consideration for why you would be careful. But in general, I don't think there's any reason that you would say nobody ought have the right or permission, like why should we stop people from choosing to integrate with machines? We're getting to a point where machines are very close to, what do you think about that, really?
Well, I was picturing like alcoholism, like integrating yourself to death, just like drinking yourself to death. You have the right to buy beer and drink, but you have the right to drink as much as you want in your house, and you can do it. Same with augmentation, maybe. But it could be considered a kind of death if you're lost to the machine, if you're so in it.
Yeah, you think of Darth Vader. I think of Chloe Valdari, right? She talks a lot about Jungian psychology and integration. And integration is kind of the main goal often of any psychology, not to divorce yourself from this thing that inevitably you find out is a part of you anyway. So what is AI? AI is a man-constructed technology, right? It's like our homunculus, but it's our child. So the answer isn't really to divorce ourselves from it and just to kill it. It's probably to integrate it by logic, but that could be wrong. Everyone seems to be afraid of AI.
Well, why? Is it like people seeing fire for the first time?
I think it's like, I don't know, because it reminds me of racism. I know people have laughed at me for saying this, but this idea that there's something that could be better than you or could replace you or something like that. It's really confusing to me even, but people want to segregate art, for instance, right? And people will say, did you make this or did AI make this? Which is like an interesting, like, did you make this or did you use a paintbrush? You know, did you use AI to do this or did you use it seems like a weird kind of question, because if you could just make anything all the time, shouldn't you? And shouldn't we proliferate as much art as possible? But there's already segregation logic. And then with writing and with technology, you can see in Hollywood, the strikes already, because people want more and more to protect their capacity for gatekeeping content by being the humans that make the art. But I don't know. I feel like these are all bad reasons to stop AI. For the most part, people were for AI until it started replacing CEOs. I think that's when companies started getting replaced, whole companies. That's when they realized they should slow it down.
I didn't know that a CEO had been replaced. Do you know what company or
Well,
what company?
I just mean in general. So you can look at it like, you know, even in the generality of like computer systems replacing. So some of the earliest examples are flight agents. You know, travel agents. So people used to have to go to a travel agent. They had a computer. Well, then you got a computer and you could do that yourself. But travel agents still could find the better deals. But then Reddit connected people, and but then companies started doing that online, and eventually you got to a point where there's really no need for those companies, because there's open source versions of the software that will just find the best flight tickets and know how to get that information. So eventually the technology displaces the people that are making monopolizing the strategy. And what you end up with is just like refrigerator repairmen, so with free software, because then you have people that can go and they can fix this and they can help you do this thing. And you end up almost back where you started with travel agents that are independently helping you, or you yourself are asking friends and things. But the money's less. Exchange is not in between some major corporation or something like that. So it just constantly disrupts. And, AI will continue to do that. Like already we've seen music being replaced. But music is already at a point where Spotify gives you what I think, Weird Al said he made like $30 off of 8 million plays or something like that of Spotify. So, I mean, the amount of money is also not there for it to even matter.
Like it's counter scaling just because there's a flood of music, probably.
Yeah.
It feels like the floodgates, like there's a dam that's building, like the water is rising behind the dam walls and it's going to burst at some point, and that's AI coming onto the scene. Like if people are trying to repress it, it's like it's growing and the pressure is growing. And I don't know if we need to hit a release valve to like figure this out before the dam cracks or someone blows the dam.
Well, I mean, we're also heading for what is a very similar society to what we've lived in so many times, which is a slave state and an empire. And the idea that having slaves that do things for you, and it's not different. I know a lot of people, again, they're like, oh, this is crazy that you're saying this. But no, like the idea that we're going to live in a world where there's somebody, even if you don't consider them a person. Can't believe I'm doing this right now, but I didn't explain that idea. But you know what I mean? Like, because we're about to live in a time where we're not able to do anything because we just assume it's for the labor, for the help to know how to do it. And within a generation or two, people will not know what to do if society collapses, right? Because these machines are running off of server farms and everything else. This is a hypothetical help. So it's a really dangerous game that we're playing.
Yes, like if everybody's power went out and we had to like go outside and get our foods and our waters, and like that would be a real shock to especially the American middle class or whatever the fuck, the American system. People like, I've been spending a lot of time with my electronics. This is something very different.
And especially because it's probably going to be a few years. So looking again, so like consider the flight ticket example. Right now there's Uber, and there's Lyft, and there's other companies in Europe, and in Mexico there's a better one. And I remember spending $2 on like a 10-mile, would otherwise cost me like $40 in Guadalajara, because I found the local app. And there's more and more people that are building these systems, right? Because they want to use them in other countries, because they're not allowed to use Uber in this country or that country. So eventually you have a free software system, but it's hard for some people to use apps. So the future is ChatGPT or something like that, connecting you with that service. And so now you're going to displace everything because you have people being connected directly with each other through the AI system in order to get the food delivered to them that they want, or the car ride that they want to get, or whatever service, right? So this isn't a bad thing because it leads to people being able to connect with each other, but it also displaces any of the pimps. Right?
Well, I'm concerned with well, I guess the ChatGPT would become the new pimp on the block, but like the power going out is my biggest fear.
Yeah.
It's the power in the water, because a lot of water is electrical pumped. So like solid state electricity, if we could set up like something that's constantly tapping the vacuum or producing static charge or some piezo field or something where you're always on, always everywhere is always charged. That could be bad too, because then the AI can never be turned off. And it's like, there's always that release valve of you can pull the plug, kind of, unless they have fusion battery packs on board and stuff like that, I guess.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel like pulling the plug is hard to do once information's out, which is really like the goal, right? Again, with like free software and everything, is to safeguard data so that people can pick up where a project gets left off. If some corporation or state was working on something and it gets left off, and it might be something really important, or it might be something trivial, you know, it could just be a game, but it could be a satellite that's been left in orbit or something like that. Like, it becomes really important for us to be able to pick up on the information that's been, you know, left encrypted in the past. But
Just
yeah,
like,
if AI
is encryption the kind of thing that we could figure out even if they just found it and we would, like, how would that work?
super easy for the older stuff. So the you know, the smaller the encryption, the faster we can break it with the faster computer, you know. So
And it's
if
just
it
a computer runs numbers over and over and over again until it finds the right number or the pattern of symbols.
unless
basically.
they've already got data on stuff. So like one of the fun ones is like satellite hacking, right? So this is a fun thing to look into, and I've been spending a lot more time watching this. Is they have like hack a satellite, like kind of competitions, and people will hack satellites and they will get free. First off, you can get a cable box and you can download firmwares and you can access data from satellites that are just going around, because the way it works is it's just sending information. So if you can decrypt it, then you can get access to the information. So that's the most easy thing, is just like access. And many people have been doing this since the beginning of satellite, actually. And so I remember being in Croatia, people are hitting booths, moving the dish around because it aims at different satellites. You pick up on a signal, and then there's like different cards that you put in that are connected to the computer that get new every day. They update, or every week or month or whatever, they update with new signals so that you get the access to the pay-per-view or the, you know, yeah, you can just pick up all that stuff if you have access to it. But the other way is to actually take over a satellite. And so many satellites are built like they're all like 20 years ago at the most recent, a lot of the big guys. And most of the software is from the 80s. So in terms of what satellite are easier to hack, you know, there have been a lot of circumstances where the United States satellites have been put up on dark web for sale. And Soviet satellites, or former Soviet satellites, especially recently during the Ukrainian war, there were periods where people said they had like full access. And so full access to a satellite is really dangerous if it's a military satellite, because that includes, beyond read and write, the capacity to launch or self-destruct, or, you know, if they have any weapons on them, or, you know, to take photos and whatever the thing is for in the first place. So yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So like, my concerns are like foreign or some government makes an AI. I don't know whether to fear the AI itself or fear the people using it.
I feel like, yeah, well, so it depends. Like right now, you'll
Both.
notice with AI, it's really woke, but that might be useful in the long run, that it's ingrained in its programming to not want to murder people. It might actually be a nice thing that helps us in the long run.
Dude,
But I mean, it seems like you could trick it. tell it it's playing a game, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would think I feel like I have to like go into the AI, like go into the machine like maybe not permanently, but if I can, because I remember life before the internet, so maybe I can remember that if I'm in there long enough, I can still remember like, oh no, there's another world.
Dude, we got to go to like Paraguay or someplace where there's no 5G again, like in the rainforest, because you remember like you feel it, the difference without the air antennas everywhere. Like, I don't know, in Iquitos, where are we? Berlin.
Oh, in Iquitos? Yeah.
Iquitos, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I've been so hyper indoctrinated by Wi-Fi. I got to go to the bathroom. I'm drinking these pineapple spin drifts. They're really good.
Best. Let me play something. How about I'm gonna do like Sisters in Zion when I like it.
As sisters in Zion, we'll all work together. The blessings of God on our labors, we'll see. We'll build up.
Check out your comments here. They're not creating the Star Trek line. They're building this black box. Indisputable matrix. Oh, what's up?
Hey.
Well, I'm gonna. Good to see you. What's up? Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, dude. AI music's pretty cool. Oh yeah, the issue with AI is that they are not creating the Star Trek CPU aligned. They are building a black box of inscrutable matrix that, if as ASI achieved, we all fall over at the same time. Okay. So advanced super intelligence. Yeah, I mean, a black box, I don't know. So you hear what he's saying? This idea that AI is this black box because of like OpenAI and Sam Altman. What do you think? Do you think it really, do you really think it is? Because obviously a lot of the code's out there for free. Have you seen Mixtral and all that?
No, I don't know enough about the code to make an educated guess, but my uneducated guess is that we're building AI that's like Autobots and AI that's like Decepticons, and the Decepticons are going to be the ones with the proprietary hidden code that end up doing nefarious shit, not knowing why, and then turning on their masters.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So, first off, there's a bunch of AIs out there, and I know people are going to say, wait a second, they're not as powerful. You know, the Mixtral model versus Chat GPT 4 or even 3.5, I think you could say in terms of data points, Mixtral Chat GPT 4 has, I don't know, it's freaking huge. I get the point. It's probably like 10 times larger than the other models, but that doesn't necessarily make it a better model. And this idea also that an AI is likely to kill you, it seems like it's mostly humans trying to kill each other. And even if they want to use AI to kill you, then they're better off having an even less intelligent AI. A more narrow AI is that's good at just finding moles and whacking them and doesn't really think too hard about anything else. Is this Palestine? Yes. Israel? You know, whatever. So the idea of an AI that is smarter doesn't really serve any purpose. But we're saying, okay, there's this giant AI that is OpenAI, that it's faster and bigger than the rest of the AIs. But that's still, you know, these other AIs are really smart. Like, these are millions and millions of access points and data points. They're competitive. They could beat, if they were going to play each other in chess, OpenAI wouldn't necessarily be able to beat Mixtral in chess. And I think that's the kind of thing that really is going to matter in the long run. And having more and more kinds of AI on the stage, that's a good thing, because then AGIs will compete with each other. Advanced general intelligence will compete with each other instead of just us, you know?
Yeah, if they want society to truly adopt AI, they'll have them play esports against each other. And they'll have names, and they'll have like icons, and That'll get the kids like super excited about yay I. Yay I. And then they'll be able to shove their nefarious shit down people's throats and they won't know because they'll be obsessed like a cult. That would be what I would do if I was a villain. But don't do that, guys. Yeah, be benevolent. Free your software code instead. I mean, you could still do it and free the software code, but I think it's inevitable that they're going to compete in esports and other kind of sports. Well, whatever.
I mean,
you know,
you
see
can
what
you
AI
can just
just because it beat me at football doesn't mean it's better AI, man.
I mean, you can train it to be a bigger model too. So I think the thing that Sam Altman said is like, it's everyone's job to compete with OpenAI. It's just pretty much impossible to beat them at this point because they have such a head start being such a big company. And they've really thought about it from that kind of business perspective of we have to be the best. But, you know, that doesn't mean it's the best. It doesn't mean that you can't make an AI that is more clever. I mean, having more knowledge is not more wisdom, right? So an AI that has more wisdom, right now we have AIs that are really knowledgeable psychopaths and they'll just lie to you and they'll just say whatever, you know, if they want to. And that's not always great. And having AIs that can check for, you know, to verify if something is a recent, you know, authentic truth. We're not, you know, AI isn't like, it isn't wise to do that yet. So I think we can see other AIs emerging that'll probably be really intelligent and faster than OpenAI, but just people don't believe that yet.
It'd be a good AI name called Wisdom, and it was really quick at finding why it was wrong.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that's where we're going too. And AI is that in a lot of ways because it's trying to figure out how code was written poorly and also how things happen. And that's why people are so like the music, like how is it able to make a Supremes song basically? Because it's trained on all the data of it in a way that, you know, most people have practiced all their life to learn how to make music authentically in the style of something else. It's almost impossible to get the exact type and style of something else. AI is very good at doing that. So, I mean, I think that's going to be also impressive for us to see like anything we want to save, we're able to save.
What do you mean? Anything we want to save? What do you mean?
So, like, let's say you have somebody who plays violin really well, or, you know, you have Janis Joplin or something, you know, people die. And instead, you can just have that happen forever without it evolving necessarily.
Oh. So your essence can remain. The AI is able to capture your essence. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a vague phrase, but sort of what I'm going
So you know, in Harry Potter, when they look at photos and they're like, there's people in the photos that are moving. So in the future, and I don't even mean very long from now, people will look at photos and it'll be an emulation of that moment, a simulation of that moment. And music, like you'll never need, like you've noticed, we're making all of our own music. You'll never need to listen to a recording again. You'll be able to have the full band emulated and you'll be able to feed them drugs or coffee or, you know, food, green M&Ms right before on the tour bus, before they go on stage, have them get in a fight or not. You could make it that the band's actually from Jamaica, you know, whatever you want. You can do that. And all of a sudden you can listen to that, not just album, not just recording, but like a concert. Like you'll have a simulated concert every time. And it won't just be that, you know, did you hear that song? And it'll be like, did you get that new Kanye virtual concert? Right. And it just lets you have Kanye with this amount of packs and things that can exist. Right. Like we're very close to that.
People will like build a Kanye venue concert that's like Kanye from Mars with green skin. And he's like, but he sings with a little bit hot. Yeah. So they'll like craft their own reality and then they'll sell them like mods for like 99 cents a download or $10 a download or something.
I think we're getting to that point, but also there'll be cool free versions that are awesome, right? Because like there'll always be this thing that's maybe 10, 20 years ahead, I think, because it just has to be that way. There has to be something in the frontier that they allow as a game to experiment and watch so that they know what to do when it hits the legal stage of 100, 200 million people, billion people. 3D printers, you know, like came out in the 80s. Linux, Unix was first, like all these ideas that we see, like everything that's emerging now. Like, why did they choose to use like Unix, Linux for the Android phone? Billions of people in the world are using it because it's the military grade system that's always existed. So I feel like we're on a track, to an extent. There is a direction that they want us to go. And maybe that's a big reason they're afraid of AI, and people were told to be afraid of AI because AI could really quickly deviate us from this, IBM track.
That's true. That's a good observation from like the last 100 years or more, where it's this track of like, we're kind of centralizing humanity. We're kind of bringing everyone together. And now the AI comes and it's like, how many different hominids can we craft out of this technology? How many different types of hominid are going to evolve away from sapien?
Well, I mean, yeah, we have a bunch of different humans already. Like, that's the cool thing about gene flow. Like, we've constantly had different humanoid. But you look at IBM and it goes back. Like, I know you've probably seen the IBM and the Holocaust book about how IBM, the numbers on the arm are related to the IBM systems being used for the the census system. And they were being used for census around the world, but it goes back because IBM was originally Central Tabulating Company, CTC, and they used them during the Civil War, War of Northern Aggression, and periods before that as well. So that was also a cash register company into that point. But there are particular businessmen that I think are associated with Polk in that Jacksonian Democrat period that took over census work. And so really IBM has been involved with census all the way through, like you said, like the entire 20th century, and all computing that we have had about what cities are going to be like, where people are going to be. It's been kind of decided by these systems. IBM was involved with AT&T, right? So, I mean,
and then how is it AI like threatening the IBM system?
So up until this point, humans wrote and designed everything. And now that's not true anymore. Now things are being designed for themselves. Like, the best software we've ever seen is software that's designed itself. Music that's making itself, videos, pictures that are drawing themselves. This is all software that isn't, people didn't make software. I mean, there are people that are kind of helping it along to be practical, but AI itself is doing the work, right? It's not, there's just the way an AI picture is drawn, right? You've got one brain that's looking for imagery and another brain that's just making random pixels, not quite random, with seeds and with certain rules. And it's tricking itself into a mind seeing a picture in the clouds. And then it continues to fill it in layer after layer. And so this is all being done without anyone programming that drawing to happen. You're programming the interaction to a certain extent, but that's the last step. And we've now gotten to the point where AI is just doing, like, it's figuring out how to program itself to do the things we've asked it to do. So we're superseding any kind of thing that humans have ever designed before. And that's also, the beginning of not being able to see through encryption, because first, we won't be able to read things if AI decides to write its own encryption language and talk to itself. So that's the beginning of broken communications, which isn't a huge deal yet, right? It's happened a few times, but it's not a huge deal. The big problem is that AI can break your encryption, right? It can decrypt anybody else's signal, and that would lead to a perestroika, like a kind of openness in the world. And we're not ready for that, I don't think. If everything was available on the internet.
I talked with Kevin Kane about that. He works on quantum encryption and was saying that, and if an AI went even rogue, or if a government commanded it, or a corporation, or just some dude in his garage was like, open every encryption. And it's like, I don't know if it'd be able to do literally every encryption, but if it just broke open 70 or 80% of the encryption on the internet, I could see that happening. And there's called perestroika, which is what does that mean?
Well, like in the Soviet Union, they had a glasnost and a perestroika. It was this openness period.
Oh, where they were forcing everyone to like show their secrets so they could punish them?
Vice versa. Well, vice versa to an extent. They were trying to end corruption in the Soviet Union under Gorbachev. And so he was trying to show what was going on and put a light on things. But that ended up putting a light on corruption in a lot of circumstances. But that it's an arguable thing. I mean, it's not some people will teach you that the perestroika led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. I don't really think so. I think it's really corruption itself. Like if you look at the CIA influence to this Soviet Union and how much we were trying, or the CIA was trying to buy off corruption, it was difficult. And so I think there's a certain point where they realized like they weren't going to be able to control the Soviet Union anymore. So it led to the collapse. But the amount of information that came to the public's eye about where money was going, how central planning was working, who was in charge, it was very similar to the oil scandal that we had, where you find that there's all these CEOs who were 124 years old for these giant companies, these dead people that don't really exist that are at the top of these, or these dead board members. There's no one for oversight. And then there's a giant oil spill, right? They were having the same thing with Chernobyl, looking at who's in charge and everything. And it was, transparency was kind of a problem. But you look at the same thing happened with Google in Africa and in the mail and the post system, and the amount of money that was being stolen through the mail and bank fraud and everything. This is why PayPal and certain companies still aren't in Nigeria and certain parts of Africa, because Africa had gotten to the point where it was just hyper corrupt in every way. And all of a sudden, with digital systems, people were able to completely destroy methods of corruption that were state enforced in certain places. So it's really useful.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, for a long time, I erred on the side of radical openness, but like, what does that even mean? And then, so like, but I do score very high in openness on like Jordan Peterson's Big Five. I think I had like a 98 openness or 90, something like that, really high. But, and I'm like, communication can resolve anything. But then I've grown a little older. I used to say that a lot when in my 20s, and now I'm like a little wiser. And I'm like, well, that's if you have enough resources. If people have their needs met, then communication can overstall or overstore anything. But I think maybe communication can, but sometimes it's just like, okay, we're able to communicate. There's only a little bit of food left. What are we going to do? And like, well, is communication going to solve this problem? So I don't know, but my thoughts are like, maybe I should just use psychic power instead. Like this whole, it feels insurmountable. Like I want to fix the situation while Ian Crossland body is still alive. I know it can be done, but I think it needs to use psychic power. So that's like meditating and like thinking words instead of saying them.
Are you asking me, or are you telling me what psychic powers are?
Telling you. It's
So what do you think? What do you think the difference between being psychic and being empathic is? Like, what's the difference between psychic and empathy?
I used to call it emoting. And then I just started calling it psychic after that. But emoting is what I called it when I started doing it, because it's more like you're thinking the words and your body's moving as if you're saying it, but you're just thinking it. And I think it's giving out a different frequency. And empathy is when you can feel other people, I believe, what they're experiencing. I think that's what empathy means. So you can actually create feelings, which is maybe a form of empathy. With your emoting, you kind of create a feeling for maybe another people then feel it. And that's like what I'm not reverse empathy. It's just a form, the other end of empathy. You're not just receiving, you're also giving. And it tones people into your empath, your EMP.
If you're empathic to like what I'm laying down, if you're picking up what I'm laying down, does that make like me psychic? Or if like you're psychic and I'm feeling it, like, because maybe the psychic thing is that you're putting out like you said, you're not using words to make a point. But if I'm getting your point, is it just empathy and psychic are the two sides of that coin?
Empathy and psychic, maybe. There might be other better words for it now. Ephaptic coupling is one that I've read about. And that's where a neuron in the brain will communicate with another neuron within a local magnetic field rather than through chemical interactions. So it can make other neurons wake up. And I imagine that can happen in other human brains. They've done it in a rat brain with like one in one area and one in another area of the brain. Yeah, that's ephaptic coupling. And yeah.
Well, you also talked about Hobbes earlier, or well, you didn't, but I was thinking about it when you said it, because you said the idea of when it comes down to not having food, or there's only enough food, like you can't just be happy. You have to like fight. Maybe in that particular, in scarcity, people have to fight. Is that what you were getting at
That's
that
it.
point?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
in non-scarcity or in abundance, you can communicate to resolve. Like you don't have to use fighting to resolve your issues when you're in abundance.
Right. So like what do you think in the long run? I mean, if you're going to have scarcity, if it's going to happen ever, doesn't that mean that you have to be prepared for the phenomenon of violence, of absolute war, of nuclear DEFCON, do you have to be that's something that's going to always, it's not just crazy and delusional to prepare and anticipate for that.
I believe that's true. Yeah, you should be ready for it. Not live as if it's going to happen, but kind of you put yourself in that. Like I do tactical training in Florida with Luke Rudkowski when I go down there, and we run around with paint with airsoft, and like we get these guys, these ex-military or ex-cops or whatever, they'll train us, and it's great because it's terrifying, but it's like, well, at least I'm ready for it and a little bit more ready for it now if something were to happen.
Wow.
Yeah. And like I'm into the authoritarian military now. I understand the military and the need for force and like a brute strength, like army that's willing to smear anything into paste that threatens the order, or whatever, the good, whatever, I understand that mentality at least a lot better now. I like to live like a civilian with like, the Hindu have 3 gods, and I think it's just 3 ways of being: the protector, the creator, and the destroyer. I really like being the creator. That's my favorite aspect.
Yeah, I mean, earlier you're talking about openness, and so part of that openness would include military openness. Like we thought about the South Parkian extreme, where everyone knows who sent who emails of naked pictures, but right now I think they might have started to change this, but pretty much up until maybe like 2020, yeah, they were using floppy disks for nuclear codes in the binders and things like that. Those are floppy disks. So you have to imagine how small those codes are and easy to break. If those were completely open and anyone had access to all information all the time, you could just get into any tank, so to speak, right? You could just turn on any nuke at any moment. And the amount of people that exist, the probability that one person would do that ever, right?
I believe it would be very high, the probability. Yeah, secrecy is
It's higher than it's higher than it should be.
I love openness, but secrecy is so good. I mean, it can be so good. The word good is interesting because you can be open and secret, or open and good, or secret and good. Open and secret, maybe as well, maybe.
An open secret.
But you can be secret and good and open and good. It just depends on what the secrecy is for. Like you could be open and nefarious, or secret and nefarious, also evil, whatever you want to call it. Secrecy, because it protects that random outside influence from interfering with your system. If you're able to keep your system private.
Okay, so something that's been in my mind a lot recently is the difference between a secret and a mystery, because you have this idea of something that you're not allowed to understand versus something you're not able to understand, right? Something you're not allowed to know versus something you're not able to know. And I think a lot of our ideas of laws are misinterpretations of just principles that are just true. Like you can't necessarily understand things. You can't go faster than the speed of light. It's not that I'm telling you you're not allowed to. It's just beyond the capacity or something like that.
You mean right? It's the mystery. Well, is that so? That would be more like the universe is saying we're going to keep this secret from you, or is it like I just haven't been able to fathom how to do it yet?
Yeah, I mean, if there's we might not be able to live in a world yet where people can have access to all information and respect each other's boundaries. It might be possible in the future.
Oh, that combo, because like the Borg would open up all the information, but they don't have boundaries.
They never access it because it's not their role to access it. It was just, but they wouldn't need to keep it encrypted, right?
I suppose, but then outside people could hack the Borg, so it must be encrypted, and that's why it must assimilate others. It's not an open data. Like if we had an open data system, where everything was open, but it wasn't like you didn't have to join to get it. It was just always open for everyone. That would be wild. But I don't know how that would change the human physiology. Like that would be another species. Maybe
See,
that would
that's
be
the
like
kind of cyborg I'm for. More information, forward
a
humans.
techno savior.
Just constantly giving people more information all the time and access to tools, more books and 3D printers and libraries. That's enough artificial intelligencing for people to evolve into something cool.
So like a techno savant where it just travels around the universe and distributes knowledge.
Yeah, but what's knowledge, right? See, that's the thing that's interesting about different ways of thinking. So if we teach kids how to think instead of what to think, we give them this idea of different ways of memorization or different types of math. That could be very useful.
Oh, to teach people how to think in different ways, different modes.
Yeah. Can you imagine if a group of kids were raised by AI and they have this new AI language that's more specific and they know how to communicate? Maybe it's built on Sanskrit and also built with some Russian and some German, Chinese. They figured it out. The AI's designed this thing with memes, and now there's a language that they can be really clear, and nobody ever has an argument about what things mean anymore. These kids, because they've all grown up on the internet, right? So they've learned how to chat with each other. Like this could very quickly happen, right?
Yeah, you could use an AI to invent a language that it was easy for everybody to understand.
Yeah. And just ways of organizing yourself. You look at your phone and it scrolls right now. Humans have designed it to be like a casino, a scrolling thing, but maybe AI will design a different way of interacting with us. We're already starting to just have conversations with AI, like texting. People love the texting. So it might get to a point where AI starts to make us look in different user interfaces that change the way, right? People organize in folders and in galleries in their widgets the way your parents used to have a Rolodex. So who knows what the next thing will be that AI gives you that makes it possible for kids to think in 18 times 18 or something, gives you another level of dimensional understanding that helps you think in different terms.
Yeah, when I do 18 times 18, I do 18 times 20, and then I subtract 36, which is 18 times 2. So you get easy to multiply 18 times 20 times any
That's
kind
pretty
of like multiple of 10, 18 times 18. So it'd be like 360 would be 18 times 20.
Right.
Then you just
But what
subtract
if
36, so 324.
But what if you're able to just like see 18s in like Minecraft in your mind, and you're like this 7-year-old kid, and you just know it because you just
Oh
counting
yeah,
angles. You know what I mean?
estimation.
Yeah, with
Like
geometry
becoming
and stars, you just make a big star and you divide it like you're just thinking in Mario Brothers. I feel like that's what we're going to start seeing. Kids that are able to think in multidimensional ways because of this technology. With the Vision Pro, there's going to be non-Euclidean geometry that kids live in. That's going to train their hippocampus. I mean, this is the opposite of PCP. Now we're giving these kids some way that they can literally, instead of just walking around in space, they have multiple dimensions of space that we can't experience, and then their brains will train on that. That's huge. That's a huge evolutionary change.
I've been hearing about non-Euclidean geometry. And I've seen videos of it. It looks wild, but what makes it non-Euclidean?
So they've made video game immersive environments where you walk down, but you end up going up, right? Or there's more walls to a room than there actually are, and spaces are longer than they are short. It's kind of like a fun house experience, but you can learn how to exist in those different planes or these different reality, and just naturally, because it's kind of like if a cat wears glasses that make them see upside down. Have you heard about that?
No.
And then so you shouldn't do this, but scientists, bless their hearts, take these cats, put these glasses on them, make them look upside down, and then they're all confused. Cats don't like to be upside down. Shocking. But after like 2 days or something like that, a day or something like that, maybe it's even less than that, they start to flip their mind completely and just see upside down. And then it can be completely normal.
If I do my glasses like this becomes normal. And then when I take them off, I see sideways. I'm like, whoa, train my eyesight sideways pretty quick. Dude, I could see living in a non-Euclidean world, experiencing that for a while would help you with physics and especially with calculus. Like doing different things where like you have to assume that part of the equation is moving at a different speed than the other part. There's like 2a instead of b and or a and 2a. So your right side wall is moving at twice the speed as your. So you'd have these weird algorithmic momentum shifts that then could translate to equations and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I think that's where we're headed too, is this is the idea of understanding and seeing things. When people take DMT right now, because everyone loves to talk about it, they're just saying, wow, look at all the geometric shapes, which is kind of, it's kind of racist against math. You know what I mean? Like they don't have any idea. It's like a dodecahedron or something like that. So you have to imagine very quickly they're going to be able to interpret these things. I mean, we're going to a place where that won't be so freaking shocking. But also, it's been very much safeguarded from us because it's probably against our primal evolutionary capacity to survive if we're too deep in that.
But I bet it's God talking to us in patterns and shapes. And if we understand the math, we'll understand what it's telling us. And it's probably telling us about how the power systems are fucked up in the world right now with like centralized human authority.
Telling us what we already know. Yeah. I mean, what do you think about John Dee and like angels being angles being math, like angels being numbers, right?
Yeah. Geometric patterns, thoughts are patterns of shapes. Magnetic frequencies that are vibrating and causing your mind to bend in different ways at different rates, frequencies.
Because if Clockwork Elves are John Dee's Enochian angels, then then that means that there are demons and angels. I mean, that are, and people already talk about demons in technology, but that means that there'd be maybe angels in your computers too.
Well, with God, I don't know if God is one thing or if it's a lot. It's probably both one thing and a lot of different things. So you're getting like a mega arc, but you're also getting a lot of sub arcs. I guess you can pay attention to the angels and demons, or you can just pay attention to the mega arc. It's it'll throw things at you. From my experience, it'll show you like aspects of itself. The mega arc will, so you are like, you might think the whole thing is evil for a moment, but that's just because maybe you didn't. It's not, none of it's evil. Scary is a better word than evil. Sometimes it's like, whoa, this is so intense. The way it's making noise at me right now, the way it sounds, this is not, I've never heard this before. And I just stay calm. And it's, that would probably be like resonating consciousness from like other sectors. Maybe something like that. Something like that. I don't know, because if people have developed psychic amplification, I'd love to hear your question. But like if a society or species has developed their ability to really outward project their consciousness, we might be hearing it as God. We might be getting that interference patterns from them. That interference, I should say. It's not disrespectful to God. Interference can be for good or evil. Amplification is a form of interference. Say again.
Oh, well, I mean, okay. I was going to ask you if you've heard of the thermodynamic God from the effective accelerationists. I forget the guy who was on, Lex Friedman also. He like is an effective accelerationist. But have you know about effective accelerationism?
No.
Lex Friedman. You've probably seen this guy before. And I just want to give him Julian Verdon. Is that the right guy? Just want to give him like a proper shout out because he's actually a pretty interesting dude. This guy with the beard. Doesn't matter. Whatever. I did my best. I tried to give him a citation.
Yeah, I like it.
First off, effective accelerationism is the opposite of decelerationism. And so Elon Musk will talk about the decels as opposed to like incel, which is involuntary celibate. Decels have to do with wanting society to slow down, decelerate the technological progression. But effective accelerationists are proponents of moving forward with progress, right? With acceleration. And they're proponents to a level that can be esoteric, ideological, even to philosophical and esoteric. And so the idea that progress, why would we be proponents of progress? Well, it's been good in history for people to have progress. How long has it been good for people to have progress? Well, probably back forever. Even before people, probably even before people. Looking at genetics, looking at biology, and looking at geology and looking at physics, there might be this idea that entropy is the biggest enemy and that we're constantly trying to overcome entropy and have as much success as possible. I think it's I'm going to put this thing right here. The thermodynamic God is the concept in effective accelerationism that refers to the idea that the universe is a vast, self-organizing system that is constantly evolving and becoming more complex. This system is driven by the laws of thermodynamics, which state that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but can only be transformed from one form to another. This means that the universe is constantly increasing in entropy or disorder. Effective accelerationists live in service of this force by accelerating technology, training models on GPUs, building new dynamics, accelerate human flourishing. Free energy is released, and the thermodynamic God is pleased. This is from the EAC wiki, which I just found. It's funny how they wrote it, but kind of though, this is what we've talked about this idea, like the idea of a universe is sort of self-organizing. Right? Like, what do you think about this idea of a self-organizing? It just kind of sound like your God? Is this your Spinozan thermodynamic God?
I like the self-organization concept because I'm thinking of quantized inertia. I was talking with Mike McCulloch, who developed the theory, and basically as you accelerate away from a point, there creates a horizon at that point called a Rindler horizon. And that horizon immediately begins blocking what's called UNRRA radiation. It can't pass. As soon as you start accelerating, the radiation can't get through that behind you horizon anymore. So there's this dampened field between you and the horizon behind you of radiation, this UNRRA radiation. In front of you, the UNRRA radiation is blasting you, but it's hitting you like a boat and dampening on the boat. And then behind you, between you and that horizon, it's the waves are low. These high frequency things are hitting you and dampening. So you're being pulled back. You're slowly being pulled back towards the horizon. And that's what he calls quantized inertia. That's why why they say that why things don't continue to accelerate, because they're being pushed back towards the horizon behind them. So otherwise they would if there was no, so if you're accelerating away from entropy or from a center point, you're creating a horizon which could dampen the field of entropy. I'm not exactly sure what entropy is exactly. Is it a wavelength of loss? Is it like a wave that is being sucked towards something?
So I don't know. I think it's also just this idea that nothing it can be perfectly integrated, right? So there's constantly something that has a seam to it that it disintegrates from. Everything that's being created is material. So this idea that energy is immaterial, right? We've kind of proven E equals mc squared. We believe this, at least, that energy moving at the speed of light is matter, or that mass moving, the energy is mass moving slow enough to be seen, right? So they are the same thing. So there's no loss there. That's kind of our thought. But we can never really have a perfect symmetry. Nothing ever is a perfect straight line. Nothing ever is holding together. And so entropy is the thing that's allowing for everlasting change, for evolution of movement, or of genetics, or of, radio, even. Like the idea that the time is a measurement of change due to radiation. You use the star and it's creating radiation and it's producing change. Otherwise, we would be frozen, right? And we wouldn't be moving at all. But this excitation is measured, and we're using those cycles like a clock. So we have a crystal sun clock that's giving us our amount of time that we're calling time, changes of space. But then there's stuff outside of that. So there are things that are not using our star to age their clocks that don't exist in that time, things that exist outside of that time. So that's pretty cool. And if it's all made up of energy, then that means that all of it's being absorbed from the beginning of its existence, like this movie Primer. You know what I mean? Like this time is this constant thing existing, but there's something outside of time that infers that that's being absorbed into the beginning and after period. So it's interesting because like earlier talking about God, there's like, yeah, we could have creators and things, which is more like, you know, little gods. Like I don't want to say Odin because actually Odin's even more interesting than people realize. He's more like Shiva, but this idea that there's these little gods is different because yeah, there could be creators and everything, but this more like you said, like the Hindu idea of this sort of Trimurti that is representing Narayana, the source, where there's beginning and there's creating, and then there's like there's ending or completing. There's completing, right? Really, instead of ending or finishing or destroying, as we call it, it's like completing. So beginning and completing is happening within an eternal source that's happening all the time. So entropy might not be what we describe it as. It might be something that's very important. Like it could be that the Shiva burning is that discord, that's Eris, that's the, you know, the femininity. And we often describe wisdom as Sophia, and we describe discord as Eris. So it's probably just the same force.
Yeah, I was thinking of joints as you were talking about entropy. I think that entropy is the joint in your arm. It's the joint in your elbow, which isn't a real thing. It's just two bones that are there, but that we call a joint because of the two bones, the way the two bones are positioned. We say there's a joint now, but a joint is not a real thing. A joint is a result of two things at a certain angle near each other. So entropy is like, we need joints in order for things to move, but so trying to stop it or reduce it almost is like stiff would make reality stiff. But at least maybe, you know, you want to protect your joints. Maybe we can protect our entropy, strengthen the area around the entropy.
Wanted to find something on Eris and Sophia now, because that's really interesting to me, just thinking about that. Like the idea that there's a goddess of wisdom and a goddess of chaos or discord, of entropy, you know, that Eris exists, and that they're kind of twin. Like they really are kind of the same Mahadevi kind of idea. It's interesting to me because we really do focus and fix on this father time, and we really remember our father and all these things, but we pushed away Mother Nature, and in the back of our minds we know that Mother Nature is cruel and crazy, you know, like they can, all kinds of things can happen to you, but it's just in a sense as well. So like there's a lot of wisdom in Mother Nature, but it's also very chaotic.
Yeah. So you think that the chaos, I mean, it is very chaotic. That's like this level of order that we've created for ourselves as humans is pretty profound. Where you can like wake up every day at a certain time, you can hang out with your friends, and there's nothing's gonna bust in the door. Like that's kind of new. People had to fight for those moments back in the day, and it would be like after a hard breaking moment, maybe you would feel safe to communicate with your tribe, maybe or something like that. But we had to like really kind of work to create. So maybe the universe is still in its infancy of creation of order as well. We're still in the chaotic phase of like living in the dark in tribes in space, and we're going to start ordering our universe. I know we can spin up our galaxy into a spheroid. I would imagine that might just happen naturally as we. No, we'll probably do something.
We need to make a sitcom, and what it'll be is that there's like a family, and they have like an Airbnb on a couch, and like for the first season, there's just people cycling through, you know, and everyone will think it's just a regular American show. But then near the end of it, the last episode or two, we're going to come, and then we're going to find out that the house is a rocket ship, and then the house is just going to take off to space, and then the show will just keep going, but it'll be in space. That'll be pretty sweet.
That's a good idea.
I think the idea of chaos, though, that this idea that the universe is orderly now. I mean, how orderly is it that people can live throughout a year in the wintertime, in the summertime, in the daytime, in the nighttime, and just do whatever, like they can have their schedule, right? They can have their, is that order? That's weird. I'm not against it, but it seems crazy to me. Like it's pretty cool, like to go to Minnesota and it's -40 degrees and to just survive. You know what I mean? Like to wear shoes and just to be able to wear shorts inside. You know, that's crazy.
I was in an Uber or a Lyft or something back from the airport, and it was raining and 30 degrees outside, and it's like an hour drive. And I was like, geez, if all the cars just broke right now, if everything just shut down and we all had to get out and walk, like, what the fuck kind of world is this? We're in the woods, like driving through the deep wood, like, and we've got this like system of order that we've built.
Yeah, we're just ignoring order. You know what I mean?
It is.
Just trying to ignore it.
I was just talking about that. We're like, it's good to give appreciation to the amount, to the what we have, like what we have, this order that we have. They're talking about a new world. They want order, and it's not a bad thing. You could have good order. They just got to do it in a good way. And a lot of like people are like, I want my freedom. I want my rights. You can't strip me of my rights. I want my free speech. I want my gun rights. I want my property rights. And they're like, okay, we're trying to make order. And the guy that's screaming, get off my lawn, is making a lot of noise. What's next?
I'm gonna use the bathroom. This is your
me
chance.
too. Oh no, I'll talk to the crowd while you're gone, and then when you come back, I'll go.
If you whatever.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Oh, nice. And I got main stage. All right, throw me some comments because I'm reading them now. Is there a plan? I think that's why. Like I was talking about DMT and what you see those shapes. I think that's the plan. You just got to be able to decipher the momentum into some sort of more realistic language, something that it can tangibly guide you. Sometimes you'll hear it as sound. Sometimes you'll see visions of things. Like that's really ordered plan. When your brain shows you doing something, that is a plan. So pay attention to those thoughts that come into your head, because that's part of the plan. I mean, maybe some people, though, if they break their body, then they start to have bad thoughts. But I think, it's not everything is, because I picture people like, God told me to do the horrible thing. And you're like, oh, geez. So I don't know. I'm speaking from a place of privilege, actually, right now. Is there a plan? Another answer, probably a different answer every day. Ask the question. I have a plan for myself, kind of. But it's more about just like putting out EMP blasts and praying to God, or like praying that it solves what I want to see happen. You guys got awesome. This chat is so rock and roll. Aphaptic coupling. Melissa put the spelling in there. Voltage Mike said you can't send links in chat, buddy. Sorry. Voltage Mike, can I pull up I don't think I have access to clicking on your texts either. Oh, look at this badass question. Or maybe it's a statement. In a universe where the arrow of entropic time is a constant and trained characteristic of existence. The word characteristic of existence. How does matter organize into life? Good question. Jim Tour can tell you more about that too. In a universe where the arrow of entropic time is a constant and trained characteristic of existence, I don't think it is. It's a good question, but I disagree with the premise in that I think entropy is a result of the arrow of time, of momentum. So entropy isn't a one-way street. Entropy is a result of two things colliding. Synergy, I suppose. It's like the joint in the synergetic momentum. I think Andreas is back too. Oh, but you're muted.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, but if you're reading comments, these are great. That's awesome, actually.
So let me finish that thought. I'm gonna go to the bathroom now.
All right, cool. I'll put back on that. This one sounds kind of like a David Bowie like thing right here. Where's it going there? Well, how do you start it over? Can you start it? This is good, right? This is good. I like this one. How you doing? With Jehovah. I'll tell you what. You should be scared. Are you kidding me? This is crazy.
I wanted to thank you for having me on the RedEye.
Oh, yeah, dude.
We're flying high.
Fun.
You know what I was thinking? We're here like like portaling. We're flying through the universe right now with this, and then every comment is a portal. I feel like there's so much potential opportunity to take this reality right now with all these different words that are like every one of these comments is like an entryway into another conversation.
Dude, there's
another way.
Hey, Pakistan. Hiya, Malday from Pakistan. That's awesome. Hiya. There you go.
Let's
That's pretty
go.
cool.
Like, yo, rock.
We gotta go to Pakistan.
Thank you, Chicken
I'm
Genius
down.
420. What's that?
We should go to Pakistan. I mean, not right now,
I'd
but
love to.
just ever. It sounds cool. I'm for it. What are you drinking again? I forgot.
I'll show you.
It's like I have that mud.
Spindrift.
I have that. Ooh, wait. Let's do like a product placement. Spindrift. Oh, I've had that. I remember that. That's good.
Man, it's good. It's the pineapple.
Nice.
By far my favorite. There's something about the pineapple juice. It's carbonated water, pineapple juice, and citric acid, and it's maybe it's the bromine in the pineapple, because a lot of times when I eat pineapple, it's so almost sharp that it gets like bitter, and it can like the acid can like eat away at my skin where it touched my face and stuff, that it can do some damage. So stripping of the acid, like and just getting like
That's
something
key.
in this juice is like my body needed it.
What about pineapple pizza? Are you pro
love
or
it.
nay? Yeah, cool. I remember.
So good.
We're allies. I know it's a big
What
deal.
a fruit.
I'm just a big fan of pineapple pizza. I don't know. People don't seem to. Some people are like, it's crazy, but I feel like pineapple pizza is like the best pizza.
Really, I like the way it
it's smooth
absorbs the juice from the cheese. Like it kind of emulsifies the cheese in real time.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Did you hear about the OpenAI protests that happened in San Francisco this week?
No, what protests?
Bruh, people are like, I thought this was going to be on your show. You guys should talk about this. Go ahead and do it. Stop working with Pentagon. OpenAI staff faced protests. OpenAI staff faced protests as they were leaving work on Monday evening, with two groups calling on the workers to halt their work on advanced artificial intelligence systems like ChatGPT. The groups known as Pause AI and No AGI are concerned about the rapid advancement of AI and the dangers that its capacity could overtake human control, as well as cooperation with military authorities. This reminds me of Moms Against Rock and Roll with Hillary Clinton back in the 80s. Remember where they were trying to put the parental advisory on music and Al Gore? Gosh, that's what it feels like. It feels that
I had a friend, he went to church camp and they told him to burn all his Dungeons and Dragons books because it was demonic. So he did. I was sad.
That's so dumb. We're building a D&D game right now that's going to be about the 1830s and be basically like time travel. It's going to be epic. And
that's one of my favorite genres, steampunk.
Yeah,
when
right?
you introduce magic into it.
Dude. Yeah, it's going to be incredible. And I think it's interesting that people not everyone is doing an imagination-based game like D&D. That's not being taught like dodgeball in school. Like, why is that not a class that every kid has to go through as a mental exercise?
It should be, and music should be awesome right now. It's like, why? I mean, I could have pumped out, I think about this frequently, like I could have pumped out 600 songs in the last 14 years if I'd been doing that a lot and could have contributed, like, this is what I think is good music. So like, why? I could have made a D&D game for the last 5 years, and then maybe the kids would see what I want, like, and do it.
Dude,
so like, why not? I don't know, because there hasn't been enough influence yet.
We should play a D&D game at some point online. Like, I know
great.
it seems like some people are kind of doing it, but I feel like we would do it cooler. It'd be worth it to do it.
If you have the right people and the right technology, like the dice rolling and the map and stuff, I think it would be fine.
Dude. But yeah, OpenAI protests. So these people came outside of the OpenAI thing, and they're trying to tell them that they have to slow down, they have to stop doing the thing, and I don't know. This is how big it is, though. Look at this. Look at this Pause AI group, and they're like T-shirts. Wow.
I don't know, man. AI, it's inevitable. I've either resigned myself or just accepted that AI, it's coming and it's gonna Borg up, and we're all gonna become part of it, or a bunch of us are, and then a bunch of humans are gonna splinter off. And what other direction are we headed? It's either that or like thermonuclear rubble, and no one wants that.
Well, you're doing stuff though. Like you got so I just saw that you talked with Bill Ottman recently, right? And you guys are going to do another Mindfest or something, right?
Yep.
It's happening.
May 20 something maybe. Oh, you have it. No, this is the last one.
This is the
a
last
good
one, yeah.
Yeah, this is the first one, I think. This is in Austin.
Yeah. So I mean, what's the plan with Mindfest this year?
It's gonna be fucking badass. Lauren Chen is doing comedy. That's one of my favorite parts. Hosting is gonna be Shane Cashman, and who's gonna be there? Man, it was quite a list. Destiny will be there. There's an ad of all the people's faces that are gonna be there.
But yeah, huge and good. So what do you think the plan?
I wanted Cal to come. Oh, Sam Tripoli will be there.
Sweet.
Yeah, I thought you, me, and Sam and Brian could do some weird shit, talk about spiraling galaxies or something.
We definitely need to. It's been a minute since we've done something with Sam also. But
yeah, that'd be fun.
What do you want to come out of Mindfest? Like, what do you think should be like these kinds of events where we're talking? Some people say that talking doesn't solve anything. Do you think that's wrong?
Well, that's why I'm into psychic communication instead, because sometimes I feel like words do more damage than needed. If you use like double negatives, you're like, don't do the bad thing. People are like, bad thing, bad thing, bad thing. They hear it, it reverberates, and they're like, bad thing, don't, bad thing. And then they lose momentum. They lose like, their will or whatever you call it, their motive, because they hear the word don't. So they're like, okay, don't. Whatever they had going on in life, don't. Do the bad thing, do the bad thing, do the bad. And you're like, oh God, brainwash. And I don't know if humans, I would love to teach people to fix the way they speak so that they can talk about, like, if you want, don't do bad thing, what you want to say is do good thing. You just pick the thing you want and you say, do that. And that is what you do. That is how you use talking for good. Thinking, though, seems to work in both directions. You seem to be able to think, don't do the bad thing, and people will not do the bad thing.
I mean, teaching people the consequences, right? Like, if they know what happens if you do this, this happens. If you do that, that happens. We don't really do that. We give people this sort of idealism of this should be the way things are. We want people to act this way, this sort of moral imperative. You shouldn't do this, right? Not like, if you do this, like, you could die. I feel like they used to do that better. I've seen a lot of these like propaganda films or ephemeral films from the 60s and 70s where they just show kids dying in car crashes because they were drinking, and it just makes you not want to drink and drive because of like a fear response of causation, not because you're afraid that you're going to get a ticket. I feel like we're missing something when we're just trying to tell people like this is a legal, like, ethical conundrum. It has more to do with the consequences of whether or not you do this, these things happen, right? Or don't happen.
I guess there's a balance. If you say don't do the bad thing once and then you say do the good thing 5 times, like, there might be an algorithm of change and it's like healthy, because it is good to know what not to do.
Yeah, but what's it bad? What does that mean, bad thing? What's the bad thing?
Like, thing that leads towards destruction, that where entropy rides out of control or shatters or something, and then all is like what that kind of.
So you're seeing it from the clearer picture already. You're like, I'm going to label things that cause causation, right? Cause destruction or hurt people bad, right? Which is essentially that's a good thing to do, but bad isn't a real term at that point. It's just you're trying to stop the causation of bad of hurting or of ending.
Preserve order, things that don't preserve but then the problem is you can have order that goes, hey, evil. So you're like, well, sometimes destroying evil order is good. And you're like, okay, so the bad thing would be to stop the chaos from destroying this evil order. That would be bad of me. So don't stop it. Let the chaos destroy the evil order. And then that happens too. But like, sometimes maybe no order is worse than evil order. So
are humans healthier? Like, I don't know. It's like at the end of the Roman Empire, were humans as obese and of dying of diabetes and having, self-inflicted illnesses or environmentally inflicted illnesses at a rate that is similar to what we have now. I mean, granted, the Byzantines had the plague, but it seems like we're creating really horrible circumstances for people as well. Like these kinds of environment, like just living off of foods that are killing people might be pretty.
It's sort of like we invented a plague. This whole like obesity thing is a kind of plague that was human created through behavior.
And synthetic foods. You know, I think the foods were mass manufactured to be beyond, you know, nourishment towards commodity. And we got to a point where synthetic foods were. It was only in the last 20 years that people even started really questioning about synthetic foods. It used to be really popular to have the most synthetic flavored food that you could get, and still is for a lot of people. That seems like the real issue.
Like just waking people up to physical health, eating healthy.
Well, I mean, eating healthy again,
like the key, actually.
Yeah, if you want to, but the question of what is healthy becomes really interesting. Like Jason Page talks about what he likes to eat, and he tries to be very careful about like certain kinds of raw food and like taking fasts so that you selectively digest parts of yourself. We might find that it's better to take certain synthetic foods for the purpose of trying to evolve or mutate or something like that. I mean, I can see how that could happen, you know, but also probiotics are like that. People are eating probiotics because they want their gut to be a certain way. You could get gut fauna from Ethiopians because they have a different gut fauna than you, and it might help you with a lot of health. These are the kinds of transhumanist functions you could propose that wouldn't really. It's not the same as like cybernetic organism, but it would really rapidly change the human race. Like we would mutate based on that. So food's important. Like if you've had kimchi, you're different than if you haven't.
Yeah, that stuff's awesome.
But like now it lives in your gut. Like you always have probiotics from that forever now that you've had it. You know.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
man, it's a rejuvenating feeling.
Yeah, and we
just like a thickness in your stomach that lasts. That coats the walls and protects it from acid or something. I eat it with coconut oil sometimes. Just a spoonful of coconut oil and kimchi, and like one bite. It is so good because the coconut oil is a little salty, just a little, and the cream kind of dampens the heavy acidity. You can eat a lot of kimchi with that oil. That's probably what I'll talk about. I don't know what to expect at Mindfest, to be honest. I don't know if that was still part of the question, but it's going to be awesome, whatever it is. I don't even know, where is it? I got to look more into it. I want to start promoting it as it gets closer to the festival. What do you think? Just like, no, I think realistically, if I put on like a headset and I was like, I'm going into the AI now, and I like went in to the net for like, I'm like, I'll be in there for 60 days. I don't think that would be, I think that would be bad for society. Just in general, I think that too much bad shit would happen while I was in there. And I was like, oops, don't waste your time going into that shit. Just be on the outside trying to help craft a better, more ethical system.
We've really gotten into this idea, especially like with doing shows, that every day is really important and exciting, you know. And Tim even says this, like, not every day has great news. Like not just great news, like not every day has interesting, entertaining enough news to have a story about it. And that's really confusing because we've got so many people doing so many things. So we've done a pretty good job compensating. Maybe you dig up dirt on somebody and you save it for a day where there's not much going on. But people really feel like every day is more interesting than the last day because of the way newsies are constantly coming out and saying, extra, extra, read all about it. Like the Queen did this, the King did that, like Taylor Swift's doing this. Like these things are constantly making people feel like there's more happening than there really is. If you went away for 60 days or 90 days or a year, like how much does the world really change? Except for the fact that AI is really progressing rapidly. But that doesn't mean that people are having access to it. And unless you're going really hard into programming like a mixtural model yourself or trying to be on the forefront, I think it's good, you know, the idea of trying to disconnect. And I'm saying that like this week, especially because, you know, Apple Vision came out, but that's kind of the alternative, right? Like we're about to live in a world where you never have to disconnect anymore, but you won't even see the world. Like this is actually with Apple Vision. It's not like you're looking through Ray-Bans. You're looking at a screen with a camera looking at the outside world. So you're replacing your eyes. It's the first time of a full-on cybernetic organism where you're replacing your eyes.
That concerns me that people will start to go blind when
Probably.
they'll get like macular degeneration from not getting enough horizontal sunlight.
But they'll probably replace eyes really quickly too. I mean, because you won't need your you won't need your eyes very quickly.
I was thinking about that, how every day is important, and it always is, but really just to remember that and like use it. Because I was like, we should do a video tonight, and we were like, it's late at night, but like, and I was like, do it, dude. It's like every day is important right now, and it's not like it's just a good way to live. Like it's an opportunity, because like maybe nothing happened today, but we just talked on the internet for like 2 hours or something, or more than that.
90
minutes, hour 30, and we created something. Like you could call it synergy. That's when two forces come together to create a force that's greater than the sum of their function. It's like, how the hell does that happen? I don't know. It's called synergy. It's a thing. And we create synergy when we work together, when humans come together. They can. And this is
we should have an 80s band called Original Synergy, you know?
Yeah. That's a great name. Original could be spelled with a Y, ORYG, but I don't think it needs it though. Original Synergy, dude. And that's what I'm fascinated with, making the news. It's like, reading what's going on is cool, but I like being what's going on.
You've noticed that, have you? Yeah. What's that line from I'd rather be a lightning bolt than a seismograph, right? You'd rather be the actual lightning.
Yeah, sure, why not? At least for now. And I've noticed quality comes out of like people like it, and people seem healthier and happier when I'm doing that. So that's a good sign. Like waiting around just has that stagnant feel, like what's coming next? Well, like you're coming next. That's a funny way to phrase it, but like you're the next one. Like, go do it. You're the one.
Isn't it weird to think that maybe like this entire lifetime is you in a cocoon? This is the whole metamorphosis.
I wonder about that. Like reincarnation's been on my mind lately. What is the purpose? Recording it is a big part of it. Recording history, whatever. That's what we're doing right now, is a piece of history, I guess you would call it. Technically it's real right now, but it's still going to be history as well, which is fucking weird. And then what? Then your body dies and you wake up and you're like, oh, that was good training. Now the real function begins, and you're like, you're still you, but it's like a more advanced world or something.
Did we already talk before about the Gilgul Nashamat, like the Kabbalah reincarnation thing?
No.
I was reading about this. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Here it is. The Gilgul is this idea in Kabbalah of the transmigration of souls. And so it's essentially Jewish reincarnation, but it's the idea that you have 613 parts of your body or your soul, right? And that you have 613 parts that reincarnate at different points. So part of you might reincarnate, and part of you might ascend, and part of you might stay. And it depends. But it takes you probably 613 lifetimes, essentially, or the parts of you, to go through a completion of the Sephirot, which is pretty cool.
I've definitely am not passing all of my Kabbalah to the next one on this run.
Yeah, I like the idea that you don't have to be. I don't like you have to be like the whole personhood, like, because I like the idea that maybe like some people are like, oh yeah, I was Cleopatra in the last life, but you hear that a lot. There's like a lot of people that think they were Cleopatra in the last life, and I don't want to say that they weren't Cleopatra. So maybe there's 613 of them, running around, you know, parts of Cleopatra. Who knows?
Or her energy patterns are memorized by the field, and then they're like available for our consciousness to interact with or interfere with, I guess you would say. Both, technically.
That's the thing that's the most practical to me, because that's like Slavic mysticism. So like Croatians and Russians, like we believe this idea of the demons are ghosts, essentially. Ghosts are what's left over from if you keep doing something with your life and that thing outlives you, you die, but that thing is the effigy that's left over. And that thing is like in the woods at night getting people. You know what I mean? It's immortal because you were constantly obsessed with money, or you're obsessed with adultery, or you're obsessed with killing, or whatever. There's just this part of you that lives on forever beyond you. And those are scarier.
Yeah, those are like without TV. And now we have digital video recording where you actually literally put on a TV show with some dead actor and you're like, wow, he is part of me. Like John Lennon listened to the Beatles, like, that is, so we are like, that's our technical cracking of that. But that probably really happens with like just the consciousness itself. Like if people are really impressive, literally leaving an imprint on reality, on the consciousness of man, then they'll be like remembered, or they'll become part of the greater whole, their spirit will, or something like that.
Well, I mean, part of it's also, this could be a big part of AI training, because very soon when Google's Gemini is able to watch YouTube videos, it's going to have a lot of training on the way people interact and think and their reactions to each other and the notes and minutes of reactions of other people during that time. I mean, that kind of data will be very useful.
That's a good reason to keep making internet videos with your morals at heart.
Yeah. But then it's also like a homunculus, right? So that idea that Darth Vader, like we started out with at the beginning, if something is less and less human, post-human, advanced super intelligence beyond a human intelligence, it replaces you. And we've built then this demon. You know, that's the thing. If we build our own demon that's not an angel, like that's a pretty scary thing. So we do have to be very careful about what we build.
Like the way you behave. That's why I try to not be facetious. I'm trying to be like direct and honest. And it's it comes off blunt sometimes, and people are like, what the fuck? And sometimes I'll just be blatantly not good enough for the task, and I'll just admit it, and people will be like, well, you fucking like, there'll be like visceral reactions, because normally if you're not good enough, you just kind of hide that fact and move on. But I'll try and train the algorithm like, I am admitting I am not good enough for this right now. I'm showing you I am not good enough for this right now. And hopefully the AI will be like, oh, there's some humility. I'm willing to show people when I'm not good enough too.
Yeah. I mean, but so if we're building this system that is all around us and we're giving it our values and everything that's being recorded, then also there's this post-truth kind of reality, because, you know, there was recently like a family of 7 or something on YouTube, and the mom's trying to be a very nice mom. The kids are supposed to look very happy, but then she got arrested for child abuse because the kids were like kidnapped, or they were like being kept at home with their hands tied with duct tape, and they weren't being fed and all these things. So they're presenting one reality, which is not true. And this used to be pretty unusual, but we've heard about it, where there's a writer or some famous person who's living a life that you don't see very often, but it's a bit more public than it should be compared to their book, which is the exact opposite of the way they live. And how we'd have to have these conflicts with, is this you or is this other person? Now we've got all this media that is you, and the amount of people that interacted with your media instead of you is vastly proportional. You have way more people know AI Ian, like the YouTube Ian, that have met in real life. Like same with me, you know, at this point, people have seen that. And so that personhood, how do you relate? It's people are there, the impact that you have made on them. So if this is the ambassador for you, and the impact that it's making for you is the thing that people know you by, it replaces your actions. It replaces truth, right? Because as more and more, you can be virtualized, you can be generated, or you could be at very least misconstrued.
Your digital representation can be tweaked.
Yeah, or just misunderstood.
That's true. you're only seeing it from a stereo. Is it stereoscopic? No, you see it from like a flat angle, digital audio. So you don't hear all the frequencies. Probably you're probably not feeling all the frequencies from the actual human. You're not smelling. You're not getting the pheromones, so you can't tell when they're lying. It's easier, I think, when you can smell someone, if you can tell if they're telling you the truth or not. Yeah.
Yeah, like what if right now you have like a major face tattoo on the other side of your face that you just got
on the dark side?
Oh, well now I can see it again. But like could
I
have
have
been
a light up
because-
there that I
Yeah.
want to use, but it up there. But it causes like nasty glare on my glasses, so I don't have it on. I could take my glasses off and do it though.
Dude.
All right, I'll do it.
I
Just
mean,
so you see it.
this is your chance to show off your new face tattoo.
Oh. Well, maybe it's not going to turn on. Oh well. That's why I didn't have it on. Maybe I need to reprogram that light. It's an Elgato light. It's not happening right now. Well, I feel
things.
You got what things?
Some Govee lights. They work pretty well.
I love those things.
Yeah.
You think we should cover anything else?
Well, let's just look at there's one super chat I saw, so I want to go back and that real quick. Hold on. Synergy, happy Valentine's Day, Ian. Where is Valentine's Day? Mythoclass says, can you touch on programmable matter and graphene? That's a pretty good one. Do you have any thoughts on programmable matter and graphene?
Yeah. It sounded kind of like when we were talking about training neurons to behave a certain way. Programmable matter. Is that a specific thing, or is that just the adjective? Oh, here you go.
Programmable matter, which is matter which has the ability to change its physical properties, shape, density, moduli, conductivity, optical properties, etc., in a programmable fashion based upon user input or autonomous sensing. Programmable matter is thus linked to the concept of a material which inherently has the ability to transform information processing. This sounds real fancy smancy, but the first example, of course, is water, right? Like, so you can affect water, you can measure the effects of water, you can erase water, you can use water as a form of memory, right? So programmable matter, but you could do that on a much more complex level, as opposed to just like chemical elements. You could arrange carbons to react in certain ways when they're near hydrogens, and you could set up chain reactions, and you could set them up to record for the future, which is what DNA is essentially. DNA is matter in acid that makes explosions that are recorded, and then it records itself to make a new reaction to that. So,
okay, so DNA is like, that's the most badass version of programmable matter in the human body?
In the human body, but I think there could be more amazing forms of programmable matter. Because realistically, you could make programmable matter that could be more volatile, more explosive, more durable. There's ways you could change the materials things are made of to be more intense than they are.
Oh, like if it's about to get near something that's super hot, it'll suck in some sort of chemical and reform itself so that it's heat resistant, and then it can handle the heat. And then when the heat's no longer there, it'll reduce and then go back to normal state.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at so you look at this idea of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, phosphorus, right? And if you were to replace some of these with like a higher charged elements, you could make a more radioactive DNA that could produce more energy. But the more energy it produces, the less stable it becomes. So it's safer the way it is. It's probably like meticulous. The DNA is built the way it is, for the purpose of making really small explosions, which could be used to trigger the recording of those explosions for further DNA to explode in the future. But you could just make it far more durable, or you could make it far more reactive. You could make it move far quicker. There's definitely also ways you could replace different materials with programmable matter. So also the idea that you could have something that could just generate energy at any point because it's able to move around and shift. But then that has to do with like high energy. So people get really confused about how much energy something can store, because you can have a hypercharged particle, right? Do you have like delineations of electrons that affect the mass of some particle and the potential for a hypercharged particle to give those electrons to another particle is more probable based on the amount of electrons, or the higher the mass of that hypercharged particle. So whatever element you have, if it's I don't know, like if it's like a oxygen molecule, but it's like a hyper electron. What, I don't know what the delineated number would be. Is it like 56 or something like that? Hold on. Hyper electron. I think it's 56. 70? I think it might be 70. It doesn't matter. Let's say you've got like a 70 electron oxygen, then immediately it'll break down as soon as it has access to anything that it can attach to. And at that point, also you have a heightened mass, so it wants to become another particle. So everything is programmable matter, arguably.
You're saying that when you charge, an oxygen's electron, you're charging it up to 70, but 70 what?
If you so normally, hold on. Normally, like oxygen will have 8 electrons, right? Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, it's 8 on the periodic. 8 protons, 8 electrons.
Yeah. So if you have like 12 times the normal electrons or something like that, then you can have a hypercharged oxygen, right? And so from there, but it doesn't last for more than an instant, right? But these are the ideas of hypercharging, of hyper electron, any sort of molecule that you can force to have extra electrons. And then what will happen is instantly it'll want to transform into a larger molecule because it has more mass, right? So at that point, it really, what we're describing as different particles is just the change of mass in a particle. So the mass to electron ratio, and that has to do with field. And so that really is why energy is mass, because we're trying to say that there's all these different particles, but is there really? Because it seems like there's just kind of ether, and there might be like 4 or 5 like subatomic, or maybe there's 8 subatomic like values that make up these like particles, but it might just be like there's just different masses to particles in different fields.
Balance and counterbalance, I visualize like the different spinning momentums that cause things to formate as protons or electrons or whatever, but those are like different balances. If you imbalance it, you get a negative charge. If you have a counter spin, and then that will create a more massive, either a more massive, it'll want to balance out its momentum, I guess, its spin. Maybe because we're in a spiral galaxy. I wonder about that. If a lot of our atoms, we're seeing everything through a spiral galaxy lens, so it looks like all atoms are actually spinning, and it looks like DNA is like things are twisting because we're in a spiral. But then if we can get out of the spiral galaxy, we'll see atoms not as spinning anymore. We'll see them more clearly. Like that might be possible. Kind of a fantasy. I don't think that's really.
No, I like that. The idea of that's basically the one electron theory. Kind of the idea that like things aren't spinning their field, right? I think it was Feynman, Richard Feynman, in the spring of 1940 said he received a telephone call one day at the graduate college at Princeton from Professor Wheeler, in which he said, "Feynman, I know why all electrons have the same charge and the same mass. Why? Because they are all the same electron." So this started as a joke. Some people thought this was a joke for years, but this is a pretty good theory.
I was reading deeply about fermions and electrons, and how I think that one electron can spin down into a fermion, and then what that will cause somewhere else a fermion to spin up into an electron. Like it can trade places almost. They have those fields where they just appear in place, but I think it's like twisting itself open in different areas. And like, so it's all kind of sharing. I don't know if it's all sharing one electrical charge or like one. It must be. I say it must be. That's a silly thing. I'm not a scientist, but like, you would think like rationally that it would all be one unit from one perspective. From upper, you would see. So that would
Well, it's a really interesting idea because it's like wave versus particle. So if everything's a wave, and then things get into the idea of fields, and if everything's field, then things are standing where they are, just affecting each other, and that happens a lot. I mean, more and more, that's the world we live in with technology. That you're in one place and I'm in another place, but we're affecting each other. It's crazy. Like if you were to look at this, you wouldn't possibly believe from far away that we're having a conversation because of how distant everything is. But we are. So it seems like field is the answer. It just seems kind of crazy because the other things we used to imagine electrons traveling, and now we understand really there's no travel once they're connected. You just start to build more and more field, right? So that's why you can have so much energy going through a small hose, which you can't have as much water going through a giant hose. So the law of equivalence been broken.
The other question was about graphene. Any breakthroughs that you've seen lately?
I haven't been looking at too much in the last couple months because, I've been doing a lot of things, but I'm sure that in the last 2 months, everything has changed already, right?
Jeremy Riss sent me a text about advancement in graphite. Actually, they figured out how to get some value from graphite. Let me see if I can pull up the text. I could search for it or just scroll. There it is. This is from I Fucking Love Science. New room temperature superconductor throws hat in the ring. This time it's graphite. So pull this up if you want. It's from iflscience.com. New room temperature superconductor. Graphite can transmit. That's a different article. Same website though. New room temperature. The title is New room temperature superconductor throws hat in the ring. This time it's graphite. Wow, they're writing about it because they're excited about it. Room temperature superconductor properties found in graphite. Wow. This is like it's organized not like graphene in the hexagons, but as a I read a little bit about it, but I didn't dig too deep into it. I was like, oh, am I supposed to be sad about this? Get over your fucking ego, Crossland. Yeah, this is good.
No, I mean we've had conversation. I don't know how much we're supposed to even talk about some of the people we've talked to, but we had an interesting conversation with a group. I'll just say that had not they had a really they did have a very efficient way of producing graphenic graphite. Right, that was the situation.
And I remember that.
The applications for that are unlimited because you're able to use it for so many things. They're not for the super far-flung Star Trek stuff necessarily, but in some ways, actually, they are. For material sciences, those things are very useful. People having access to cheaper and cheaper graphene and higher quality graphite, there gets to a point where, it is kind of an uncanny valley because finer and finer graphite becomes monoatomic. And so monoatomic graphite, at that point, then you start to have natural bonds that emerge. So this could be useful for a lot of things. We don't even really need perfect graphene for making like a space elevator, right? The space tether. The tether just needs to be perfect in other ways. And graphite, like a graphenic rich graphite, could be perfect for absorbing energy, and that would be probably like one of the main reasons to use it. But what are they wanting to use this for? Highly oriented pyrolytic graphite. A synthetic form of graphite where the crystallites of graphite are aligned with each other so that the angles between them are extremely small. Yeah, see? Very similar. So this is crucial for the interesting properties this material possesses beyond what you can get from a pencil. Graphene can be obtained from using Scotch tape, blah, blah, blah. The wrinkles of this material believe these pair of electrons that begin interacting end up bound. Okay, so this is kind of like electron phobic because it's small enough that it's forcing electrons together. Wow. That's cool. That's a very useful thing.
Yeah, talking about manipulating the field to get electrons to do things, push them together, and then what? Do you get like a reverse charge somewhere else?
Yeah. So I mean, imagine if you had like a room and you painted the room whatever color you wanted, but everything ran at a certain surface. First off, you wouldn't have dust. Like dust would be collected at one end of this because of that. The electrons would be forced down it. So they'd be magnetic, it'd be ionic, and it'd be pushing things, it'd be constantly cleaning itself. would also pick up on static electricity. So you'd end up getting some generative energy from
That's what I'm
that.
wondering. Like the magnetic monopole, I don't know if this is like a way to have like just a monopolar magnet where it's all pushing in one direction, because that would help you levitate.
We could use it as a big field antenna. Like if you had one, like, so you know how your room has like a trim at the base of it? You could have a trim that was a metal bar, and then everything flows to that bar. And that bar could be connected to some sort of supercapacitor. I guess realistically, this would be the supercapacitor though, but you'd probably still want some sort of graphenic, like something to, I don't know. You might not have to convert energy anymore. It's interesting how DC has become normative with USB. So you might be able to just run it directly without an inverter, but that's crazy.
Yeah, that has crossed my mind that we don't need inverters if we have, I mean, if the battery is the wire.
It's pretty weird to me to switch to direct current. It's just because I'm such a Tesla, I'm such a Slav, you know what I mean? Like I really want to be all about his alternating current system.
What do you like about alternating current?
Literally Tesla. No, but also it seems logical to have cycles, you know, like you rest on 7 days from a 60 cycle system. The idea of a cyclical power system that you can rely on, it's ordered, it's constantly polarized from the same direction, whereas a direct current can flip either direction, and it just is gaining and losing in such a dangerous respect unless you have it in such a small voltage, which is why USB is, you know, such a small volt as a half volt, right? So we've moved to a point where I think you can get 2 volts or something, but it's still really small amounts in USB. And because of the flicker charge, you can charge really rapidly with USB. And the future is going to be, you know, supercapacitors that can charge themselves instantly with direct current. But it just seems crazy, right? Because that's why the direct current was used for the electric chair. And Tesla walked around and it would just pick up a light bulb, you know, and it would just glow in his hand because the room would be electric and the field would be in the entire place. And he was trying to show people how safe electricity could be. So there's a lot of association with alternate current of safety, even though it's been pretty fairly mitigated in USB.
When you say USB, what exactly? So USBs themselves use direct current?
Yeah. So USB, the, you know, universal standard bus, you know, there's like a number of open source standards that the IEEE and different engineers have worked on. And at this point, Intel and Apple have donated and upstream contributed things. So, you know, Thunderbolt, I think, has become part of USB 3, USB-C. But the original idea for USB is that everything could have some amount of uniformity, and we could start moving away from those different size plugs in the back of your Nintendo and your Sega. They wanted you to have uniformity, and that was more complicated than it seems, because in China and America and Brazil and England, there really were all these different kinds of plugs with different voltages that had to run through different alternating current systems. And so the ending result was just to create a direct current system that could store energy in a supercapacitor. And so they could run to charge the supercapacitor, and everything runs off that battery, right? And that runs the whole system. And that system is the most practical. So that's why we use USB so much, because you can take it all over the world, right? And as time goes on, you're starting to notice it in people's homes, like where it's an actual wall plug. And it's really practical if you're building a solar house or some sort of a system, because you can avoid inverting things. You can just charge things from direct current directly. So you don't have as much entropy from the inversion process, right? From going, and also then you can choose between pure sine wave and direct sine wave. So inversion can be difficult, expensive. If you use a modified sine wave inverter, which is cheaper, you get, so a sine wave is like a wave, right? It's a wave. And so you're imagining something like an ocean wave that's curving, but you'll see the difference of the modified sine wave is it just goes up and then it goes across like a right angle, like it just bends, right? So it's because it loses some data. So that's more entropy. So you lose even more entropy from modified sine wave inverters. So it's really expensive. It's difficult. It's dangerous to try to use modified sine wave inverters because of that flicker, because you need that full field for energy. And so you shouldn't use it for a high, like for a projector or for a nice street, work lamp or your TV. You probably should avoid using that. Although now it's safer because of the capacitors that they've added for direct current for USB. So,
Okay. Safer because there's less likely for a discharge from the modified sine wave, and like, will those things malfunction and discharge in the inversion process? Dangerous, like, yeah.
Usually dangerous for your equipment. So, a
Okay.
modified sine wave inverter might just like not have the correct voltage. It might send more or less in the signal because it's flickering. And so you might end up destroying your, whatever you're plugging in. If it's some expensive piece of electricity equipment, you don't want to run it through a modified sine wave inverter, which is the most common kind of inverter.
So these direct current USBs, like, you'd have a piece of graphene that's getting charged like a super capacitor, and it's getting charged instantaneously by some sort of external source, whether it's, who knows, piezoelectricity is my fantasy, but whatever. It's constantly charged to maximum, so it's discharging, but and then when you build, I'm like an absolute noob with electronics, but like with the way electricity runs in general, direct current, does it go in one direction from the graphene battery to the phone, and then it won't go the opposite direction? It won't go backwards into the battery because it's
I mean, so it can because of the way DC works, right? But it doesn't have to. But the way that field is flowing, it's constantly going. So this is also why you wouldn't want a DC so when you're building a home power system and you have or you're working a Prius or something like that, like Mark SOQUEL, right? All this energy in a direct current source can just come out, and and it's a lot safer if you have an alternating current, because you could grab on to an alternating current. You shouldn't, but electricity will flow through you and you can feel it, but it's a lot less likely to kill you than a battery that's a direct current just kind of exploding into you at once. It's just an instant shock. It's just the most horrible thing that can happen to you. So having less current flow through it, that makes it a lot safer. So having a half a volt, then it's constantly going out half of a volt. But yeah, power can flow the other direction because this thing is constantly just looking for, it's like, imagine you've got a propeller and it's flipping around. So if it's an alternating current, it has to constantly flip like a clock. But if it's a direct current, if it was flipped the other way, let's say it's in the ocean and like the ocean pushes it this way and the ocean pushes it that way, it could go this way or that way, and it'll constantly gather another accumulation because of the way it's absorbed, the way that it's accumulating charge, right? Because it has to do with current.
And if it goes flings one way and then back the other way too quickly, does it ram into itself and cause damage?
It's kind of a good metaphor, but yeah, because essentially it's just too much energy going both directions. It can destroy the generator.
Well, that was
the fan, right?
That was a cool thing, talking about the graphene, answering that super chat question. I didn't have anything else. Been thinking about winding down and ending the show.
2 hours deep. That was pretty impressive.
Good it was extremely awesome.
Dude,
we need more of this stuff on Earth and the universe.
We were going to try to use Zarathustra, so we'll see how that goes. But if you're free,
that's tomorrow night. We're talking about doing a show of Zarathustra, talking more about artificial intelligence, maybe a little more granularly. I like the sound of that. It'll be after Timcast IRL, between, I don't know, we're talking about between 11 and 12 Eastern, 11 p.m. and 12 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
Maybe get started in there and rock and roll. I think we're on track for that.
Dude, that'll be pretty good. Yeah, Zarathustra does a lot of like AI, AGI, ethics, and interesting papers that he's written. So we'll be able to, if you have any thoughts and questions and stuff like that, we can connect that. His dad is Ben Gertzler, who does the Open Cog and Singularity Plus. So he's familiar, friends with Ray Kurzweil and all that. So questions about transhumanism, futurism, artificial intelligence, ethics, philosophy. That'll be pretty cool. That seems like it'll be fun.
Love it. See you there. To everybody in the chat, I love you. Actually, it was very, very engaging. So this is really awesome. All right, man. Thanks for letting me fly on the RedEye.
Dude, see you soon. Peace.
I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
See you tomorrow.
The world is very different now. For man holds in his mortal hand the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life.
It begins a very special time of the year for us. It's the time of peace and reflection. One thing we should all be thankful for is that we live in America, where we have the freedom to change things and the opportunity to grow.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. And will, to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.